Friday Night Fights presented by Budweiser. We're in Struthers, Ohio to see what a former champion has left. In the main event, Hector Macho Camacho, two-time world champion, trying to extend Macho time. He's facing PJ Goosen, 19-1, with a chance to bag a big name for the resume.
Camacho, the former two-time world champion. Macho Camacho looking for career win number 69. He'll be taking on PJ Goosen. That coming up in tonight's main event here on Friday Night Fights on the Deuce. Glad you can join us. Bob Papa with you back here in Struthers, Ohio. Ain't no stopping us now. That are the tunes that Hector Macho Camacho is coming out of the locker room to. He's going through his regular pre-fight routine. A lot of dancing, a lot of excitement. Fans here in Struthers, Ohio have never seen him. But at the age of 37, the question begs, why is he still fighting?
Why not? Performing well. I still have my speed. I still have a young leg, my good looks. I'm still able to give good fights and win big fights and make big money.
Hector's been making big money since he won the WBC Junior Lightweight Championship back in 1983 against Bazooka Lamone. He won the lightweight title in 1985. His 4 losses to championship pedigree. We saw Camacho here in October on the Deuce against Ken Sigurani. Quite a step down in class for the Macho Man. And Camacho struggled against the journeyman Sigurani, but in the end, he would win a split decision. So how much longer will Hector keep at it? We asked him that.
Camacho! Right now, I'm in the Mr. Camacho stage. Mr. Camacho stage is the stage where, you know, this is like my last hurrah. It's like I'm trying to get the most fight I can within a year. I just made 37 years old on May, so before my 38 fights, I want to get enough fights in where I'm satisfied, where I could say, kick back later on, be 40 years old and say, hey, I did it all, and I have done it all.
Well, the question about Hector Camacho, did he ever really fulfill his potential? Former two-time world champion, but now fighting a junior middleweight somewhere around 155 pounds. He has some tricks in the book, too, as well. He likes to use some different things. Obviously, some of his natural skills are gone. And with that, we take you further inside the fight as we take you in the Atlas world.
When former two-time world champion Hector Camacho enters the ring, it's macho time. But now father time may be his toughest foe. At times, he still exhibits the ability and hand speed to use his experience, creating counterpunch opportunities. But the Macho Man has slowed down a bit. He grabs his opponent more and holds him behind the head while sneaking in a left uppercut. At 37, Hector can no longer use his legs for 10 full rounds. He tends to lie against his opponent, covers up, then steps straight back. But while retreating, he can be hit, having lost his quickness. For the North Hollywood native, PJ Goosen, his best chance could come via his left hook.
All right, let's take you further in the Atlas world. Teddy, I'll be Hector Camacho. You're PJ Goosen. What can Goosen do to maybe win this fight?
Where's the feathers?
I forgot them.
Okay.
All right, so Hector's inside. Hector tends to languish now.
Now, first of all, Goosen has to do the old-fashioned way, and he needs help. He needs to hope that Hector does what you're doing, just covers up and is a little bit old. And then Goosen can just do it the old-fashioned way and hustle. Put punches together, maybe move him into an uppercut, because sometimes Hector doesn't move his head. But he's just got to go to the body and bring punches up and move his hands and hope Hector gives him a lot of those opportunities.
All right, now, if Hector's smart, when he's on the inside like this, he'll punch on the inside and punch in between those wide punches.
These wide punches. Go ahead.
Now, come inside, he can score. Now, I have one more question because you showed it in the tape segment that Hector, I'll be Hector doing something bad. Hector likes to do a lot of this. What should Goosen do to get out of this and maybe score?
What he should do is he should see the hands behind him. He should move his shoulder in here. Use that. And then all of a sudden, bam, bam. And use that uppercut. That's what he should do.
All right, those are some of the things to look for in tonight's main event. Camacho and PJ Goosen. We are set for the main event. And let's take a look at the men fighting tonight. We'll start with P.J. Goosen out of North Hollywood, California. He is 29 years of age, weighed in at 154.5 pounds. He has a professional record of 19-1 with 13 knockouts, coming off a 9.5-month layoff, though. And he's taking on Hector Camacho. Camacho, 37 years of age, weighed in at 155 pounds, now lives in Orlando. He has a professional record of 68-4-1 with 33 knockouts. But, Teddy, let's face it, the level of his opponents that he's been getting wins against recently have not been of the sterling variety.
Oh, Hector Camacho, of course, has been a guy. It's amazing. He's got a career that's almost 19 years old. He's been a guy, you got to give him credit. For a guy that has all the reputation for being a guy that wasted a lot of talent. Here's a guy, he must have been in the gym pretty much a lot of time, because for 19 years, he didn't have any real long layoffs. But, of course, now at this age, he can't fight top guys anymore. Not in a winning way, anyway.
Yeah, he can fight them as far as getting paychecks and being in the fight. One thing, he's never been knocked out. But it was never really the same, Teddy, after that split decision win against Edwin Rosario. A left hook hurt Camacho, and from that point on, he was really never the same fighter.
No, he became much more defensive. He used to be a guy who was a real good offensive fighter, real fast hands. After that Edwin Rosario fight in Madison Square Garden, where he got what people thought was a gift decision, and he'd been hurt with the left hook, he became very defensive after that fight.
Camacho at 45% in the knockout ratio, Goosen at 65%. 12 of the 13 Goosen knockouts have come between rounds 1 and 3.
Goosen has a little bit of a trick up his sleeve. He turned southpaw, trying to match the Macho Man. Maybe knowing that he's not at this level and hoping that that might give him a chance. But quite honestly, he's probably going to need more than that. He just got hurt with a left hand, and I think that convinced him to get out of the southpaw stance.
Goosen fought on September the 9th, a third-round knockout against Stacy Goodson. He had a 14-month layoff. He said he was scheduled to fight Roberto Duran, but he suffered a foot injury in training in November of '97. Prior to that, 14-month layoff, a loss, a 10-round split decision to Edward Hall. He's really not been in against anyone of notable
No, and that
experience.
loss to Eddie Hall is very telling. Eddie Hall was 38 years old, a journeyman-type guy. Quite honestly, was knocked out 8 times. So you figure that he's going to have a lot of trouble being able to be competitive, even with an older Camacho.
Break! Break! Step back for me.
The problem here with P.J. Goosen, he's never fought anybody. As you mentioned, his one loss was to Eddie Hall, who's 38 years old. And what he has to do might kill him in this fight. What I mean by that might really hurt him in this fight. He has to throw punches, but he throws wide punches. And Hector's so experienced, it's going to give him an opportunity to counter in between those wide punches. So what's going to happen then? P.J.'s going to get very defensive, and then, of course, he has no shot. If he throws, P.J.'s going to have to throw at the right time here, not wide punches. You would like to see P.J. Goosen right now, Bob, move to his left, like that. Move around the right foot of Camacho. Take away the southpaw advantage of Camacho a little bit. Go away from the left hand. Camacho's been very effective, even in the later years, with that straight left hand counter. Go away from that left hand. Right now, P.J.'s moving into the left hand. Camacho's just not throwing it yet. Camacho's taking a look. There's the left hand.
Camacho landing the meaningful shots here in this first round against P.J. Goosen.
What Camacho does is still reminiscent of the young Camacho with that hand speed, very unconventional. When he throws that left hand, he doubles it up. There it is, 2 of them.
Camacho looking a lot better in this first round than he did in the 10 and when we saw him against Ken Sigurani back in October.
This is why Goosen wants to move away from the left hand of the southpaw Camacho, because standing there, he's right in front of it. And Camacho, when he uses it again, he uses it double. There it is, and then he'll throw a second one, especially when he knows this guy's retreating. Figures he gets a free shot. That's the experience of Hector Camacho.
Round number 2 underway between Camacho and P.J. Goosen. Goosen able to slip away. Tell you, the question I have for you about Camacho, we've seen a lot of guys who were former champions here on Friday Night Fights on the Deuce in their early 30s, maybe even mid-30s, and you know, maybe if they can get a couple of wins against some decent opposition, they might vault themselves back in some type of title picture. Some guys it works out, others it doesn't. Macho seems to be in a whole different area. Can he get another title shot, or has he become sort of a boxing oddity, sort of a boxing sideshow? Oh, it's Macho time, and people will pay to see him fight the PJ Goosens, but will anyone pay to see him fight a champion again?
Yeah, one of the champions that's overseas, one of the champions that's not a big draw. Of course, no more with the De La Hoyas, guys like that, they don't need it anymore. But a guy that's not a real big draw, that things like a name like this, they can sell it and they can capitalize on that. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard. Otherwise, I think his best shot, and there's a good shot from him, his best shot is probably going to be an event. It's going to be against a Tony Ayala, a guy that came out of prison after 16 years. It's going to be where a guy needs a big name like Camacho to sort of get credibility to his comeback. It's going to be that kind of move. And I heard that they've been talking to Tony Ayala's people about possibly after a few fights with Ayala that maybe they would make that fight. That makes more sense.
Sort of like a Sugar Ray Leonard when he fought Leonard back in '97.
Yes. Exactly. That makes more sense because the other guy needs him. World champions, unless it's a guy not drawing, not making money, really don't need him. And it's hard to sell. But a guy coming back, you can sell that because people say, okay, we'll see whether or not this guy has anything. Even though it's a diminished Hector, it's still a Hector who's been active.
Yeah, Hector told us he'd like a shot at Fernando Vargas or David Reed, but with their TV deals that they have with HBO and with the money that they're getting for their fights, they don't need to fight.
No, they don't. You can see right there, Goosen turns southpaw again. When Goosen throws those wide punches, if Hector punches in between, I think you're going to see the night end. But it's a matter of whether or not Macho wants to punch inside now. Right now, he's throwing the kind of punches where Goosen can see them coming. If Camacho throws while Goosen is throwing, he's going to have a lot of success because a lot of times there's openings there to punch back. Again, Goosen is southpaw once again, trying to give himself some edge against a real experienced guy.
Good stiff jab by Camacho, but does that really give you any edge against a talented guy like Camacho?
He's grabbing for straws a little bit. He's hoping that maybe that throws off Camacho. In the end, it won't change anything.
Back at the Struthers High School Fieldhouse in Struthers, Ohio, Friday Night Fights on the Deuce continues. Hector Camacho and PJ Goosen. And so far, Camacho has controlled this fight through the first 2 rounds. Punch numbers in round 2. You see Camacho landing 10 more. Through the first 2 rounds, Camacho has landed 16 jabs. Goosen 1 for 70.
And of course, Goosen is a little bit overmatched here. He has not been in there with anything near a Camacho, even a Camacho at 38 years of age. But to hurt him even more, he's been inactive. It's been 9 months since his last fight. He had 1 fight in '96, 2 fights in '97, and he only had 1 fight in '98. 4 fights in the last 3 years. That's not going to help him.
Camacho turned 37 on May the 24th, and despite what he may like or not like, the fact is he cannot continue to box forever. Said like to stay often in the ring, then maybe get a title shot. But what looms after boxing for Hector?
Right now, I'm getting off a TV series, you know, in Florida. The name of the series is Hector and Hector. It's me playing like a bodyguard. I think it's very well. You know, I think if I do well there, other things will come. I think I'm very flamboyant. I think I'm very charismatic. I think I got a great personality. I think that I carry such a big name that if I do well this series, I'll carry on to other things.
Well, that remains to be seen how he translates to the television screen as far as acting skills are concerned.
Of course, George Foreman had a shot at it. He had a sitcom.
Yeah, didn't last.
No, it didn't last too long. But he did have it because of his name and, of course, because of his notoriety as a boxer. And there are some similarities, believe it or not, with actors and fighters. Fighters have to always control their emotions, act like they're sure of themselves, when many times, Bob, they're not sure of themselves. They have to sometimes hide their real, true feelings. They might be nervous, they got to go in there and still do a job. An actor, obviously, all the time has to hide their emotions, has to change their emotions. So there's a similarity, not in a physical sense, but in an emotional sense.
You're not getting punched in the head, so it's real easy to remember the lines.
Yeah, it is. But you still have to act a way that you might not really believe in. And fighters many times have to go in there and act a certain way that they not necessarily are really believing. There's some headbutting going on there because Hector's jumping in a little bit with his punches, and Goosen is leaning forward when he comes in. You almost get the feeling that Hector knows that he's got a guy that he can control and do what he wants, and he's getting some rounds and almost playing with him. Hate to say that, but it almost looks that way. But part of it obviously could be in Hector's career now. He just wanted to work at a slow pace if he's allowed.
3 rounds in the books. Yep, Teddy, I think the fundamental difference between the two, obviously in their younger days, Hector with more talent, but Vinny's style, I think, has translated into the later years of his career. He's more of a slugger. He gets the crowd on the edge of their seat. Already here in Struthers, Ohio, after 3 rounds, as the rounds have ended, fans are booing.
Yeah, they don't mind watching older Vinny Pazienza because one thing, he's not going to carry a guy. He's not going to have these dull rounds. You know, whether he wins rounds or not, he's going to be in there 100% action, throwing a lot of punches. There's going to be no parts like we see here right now with Camacho, where he's more or less just taking his time a little bit. Vinny knows one speed, 100 miles an hour. And the people like to watch that.
He's in always a good fight. And take a look at some punch numbers. Through 3 rounds, Camacho with the easy edge as far as landing. Rips off a shot there. He outlanded Goosen 12-3 in the last round.
One of the dangers of playing around a little bit with Goosen, if that's what he's doing, is headbutt. You can see Goosen lean forward his head. Camacho's coming in with his head. And Camacho did get a cut on his head. I saw him tending into it in the corner. It's on the right side of his head. It's not where to be a dangerous part in the fight because it's not near the eye where the referee would have to worry about stopping the fight or bringing the doctor up. But it goes to show you can get rid of a guy. Don't play around with him.
Goosen has never been knocked out. Teddy, does it behoove Camacho to not knock anybody out? If he does want to get a shot against one of the top guys or one of those champions per se that you know, needs him to help bring in some money and a draw. Like, if you knock somebody out, someone might say, hey, it might be too dangerous.
No, I think the other side of the coin...
that is the ultimate skeptical way to look at it.
Yeah, but the other side of the coin is by not having exciting fights at this point in his career, people will just say at 37 years of age, you know, what's the reason to fight him? If he has an exciting fight, maybe he can sell himself at 37. But if he doesn't have exciting fights, it's a little harder to do that. And I think if he moves his hands, he's going to get Goosen out of here.
The right hook scored by Camacho after Goosen landed a few shots. Hector recently became a grandfather. Granddaughter Shania is 6 months old.
Hector's such an experienced guy. After he threw those punches, you could see he looked into the eyes of Goosen just to see how hurt he was. A guy who's not as calm as Hector wouldn't even look at that.
Some discipline was brought into Camacho's life for the Sugar Ray Leonard fight back in '97 when he teamed up with former Olympic boxing coach Pat Burns. They made a nice team. There's a good combination from Camacho.
It almost looks like Camacho let him survive there. Let him fall into him and almost let him survive.
Camacho dominating P.J. Goosen through 4 rounds.
Hector Camacho was always a good counterpuncher. He's still a good counterpuncher. He slips the jab and he throws that straight left hand. Comes back with the right hook. From this angle, you see it again. Slips the jab, left hand, back with that right hook. But then he falls in and allows Goosen to survive.
Well, while we were in replay, Camacho walked away from Goosen, rubbing the back of his head. Again, a clash of heads.
He's got a cut on the side, on the right side. They've done a good job in the corner stopping it, but he's got a cut on the right side of his head, Camacho, that is. You can see it dripping into his ear a little bit.
It's above the right ear.
I mean, again, it won't interfere with this fight because obviously it's not around the areas in the face where there could be lasting damage, where there could be, you know, hurting the eye or something vital like that. So obviously the referee would not get involved in looking at it too much unless it started really bleeding real heavy.
Power punches landed through 4. Camacho 60-13.
See those wide punches there again, Bob, of Goosen? When he throws those wide punches, Camacho has a choice. He could block it or he could punch inside. If he punches inside, we probably go home. If he blocks it, then he wins the decision. He allows Goosen to just go the 10 rounds with him. It's his choice. And that's what this fight's about right now. It's up to Hector. It's not about Goosen right now. Goosen's there trying the best he can. Can't take anything away from him. He's in there trying, but he's overmatched even with an older Camacho. Because Camacho's a guy who's a tremendous fighter. He's still got plenty of experience, and he's still not completely used up. He's in good shape.
Teddy has a shutout through 4 rounds over Camacho on his way to winning round 5. The fans getting very restless. We are in a high school gym in Struthers, Ohio. The crowd was kind of juiced up when the night started, but you hear the boos.
And you can't blame them. How can you blame them?
It's not like pro boxing comes to the gym very often. And they were not treated to a good opening fight. Robert West, in basically a sparring session against Tom Yunan. That fight ended in 5 rounds. Gary Winman and Waxman Fikes in a very sloppy 8-round heavyweight bout. And now Macho not doing much, but Goosen doing less.
And again, I'm not in the head of Hector Camacho, but it almost looks like he's carrying his man a little bit. Again, it could be because he's 37 years old and he just wants to be as safe as he can. But in some ways, he's allowing those heads to come in there by carrying him. If that's what he's doing, he could get butted like he's been already. You just get the feeling that he may be carrying him a little bit.
Hector holding behind the head, something we talked about earlier.
Yeah, he likes to hold behind the head a little bit, pull you down where you can't do anything, you're off balance, and then of course he can hit you with that uppercut. You can do it 2 ways, to score, and you can do it to keep the guy defensive. There it is again. Behind the head, goes that uppercut.
Oh, nondescript round, nondescript fight. Camacho and Goosen. Camacho in total control.
The problem letting guys survive is you can get headbutted, and here it is. Both guys come in, and Camacho grabs his head, and he's got a cut up there. He's lucky he's not around the eyes, though. And, of course, here he goes with the holding. Holds with that right hand and throws that left uppercut. That's a foul. The referee does his job, gets right on it.
Round number 6 underway. And Camacho easily in front. Outlanded Goosen 15-2 in the last round. Patrick Joseph Goosen out of North Hollywood, California. Jab numbers through 5 rounds. See the anemic numbers from Goosen.
See, Camacho could counter any time he wants. He made a couple of left hands miss before, and he didn't throw the left hand. But it looks like he had it sized up, and he's just thinking when he wants to do it. You can see he's watching everything. He sees the wide punches. Anytime he wants to punch inside those punches, he's able to do that.
What's he waiting for?
It's a good question. You wonder, again, is it the 37 years of age? I don't think so, because he's not being really taxed here. Or is it because of his nature that he just wants to, he doesn't want to knock this kid out?
Goosen landed a right. Camacho spun him around. That actually got a little buzz out of the crowd.
Maybe Hector figures, why embarrass this kid? Why knock him out?
Why?
Maybe he thinks that.
Why fight him? My question. We asked him that, and he said, I'm getting tough guys. And,
well, you're right. You're right, because no matter what you say, whether it's his humanity or whatever you want, excuse you want to make, he has an obligation when he gets in there to make the most exciting fight possible, because people will pay him.
Guess that's the beauty of Butterbean, huh? We saw him last week. He gives everyone a good show. Left hand by Camacho.
And of course, right now, similarity, of course, Camacho was a tremendous fighter, so you cannot compare him to Butterbean. But the similarity is Butterbean is very careful with his matchmaker, who he fights, and Camacho now is careful who he fights at this point in his career. Only difference is what you said. Butterbean can only do one thing. With his low-level skills, he makes real good fights. And that's what he sells himself on, making real good fights. Right now, it's going to be hard for Hector to be able to sell himself at 37 years of age if he doesn't make more exciting fights than this with a guy like P.J. Goosen. Obviously, a guy who hasn't been in there with, who's been very carefully selected with his career as far as opponents that he's fought.
Camacho coming off a win against Scott Smith, and he was unimpressive on our air against Ken Sigurani. Referee Bernie Profato awaits Hector Camacho and P.J. Goosen for the start of round number 7. No knockdowns in the fight. Camacho has landed the better punches. Camacho has controlled this fight from start to finish, but the crowd getting very restless. Camacho again outlanded Goosen in the last round. We take a look at the numbers through 6 rounds, and overwhelmingly in favor of Hector Camacho, 87-20, and landed 29% to 6.
The head's coming in. Boxing in a free box.
One of the reasons Goosen is not throwing is his technique is not real great. They're a little wide, his hand speed obviously is nothing close to even an older Camacho. So when he has thrown the punches early in the fight, he was counted, Bob. And by being counted, it made him very tentative and very defensive.
Well, one of the men that was a key component in the success of the 1996 Olympic team, along with Al Mitchell and Jesse Ravello, Pat Burns joins us from the corner of Hector Camacho. Pat, it's Bob and Teddy. Is Hector carrying this guy? Because it looks like he could punch inside these wide punches and do damage.
Well, he's just got to have a little more confidence in his condition. He really worked hard for this, and I guess he was pacing himself early. I'd like to see him throw more like 35, 40 jabs around and a few more combinations. I don't think he's carrying him so much as this guy's just trying to survive, and it's hard to land a good, clean shot when somebody doesn't want to get hit and they're not really throwing any offense. It just makes it more difficult.
Pat, this is Teddy. Quite honestly, you can see the difference, even at 37 years of age, the difference in talent here. And people got to ask why Hector just doesn't open up, because nothing fancy. If he moves his hands, it looks like he's going to get this guy out of there. Doesn't it hurt him? I mean, I know you're looking at it as a trainer, but doesn't it hurt him in his career not to get rid of this guy when it looks like he can?
Yeah, and I got to tell him that in probably in this round here, but in not quite such drastic terms. But it's just a question of having confidence when you're 37 years old and in your condition. He really can step it up. He can throw more punches. He can be aggressive and really get him out. Like he's holding right there right now. He doesn't really need to do that. He just got to push more.
Because quite honestly, I mean, Hector Camacho has been a terrific fighter, but at 37, he's a hard sell. And if he puts on a fight like this, he makes himself even a harder sell. He maybe takes himself out of the market.
Yeah, that's true, but there's so many young guys out there, and it's still nice to be able to say that you fought Hector Camacho and beat him. If it's David Reed or Fernando Vargas or one of these guys, they still like to beat a legend like that. So he's still got the marketability. I would like to see him be more aggressive and finish this. So,
yeah, we would too. But thank you very much.
All right, Pat. Thank you very much. And Teddy, you might have to ask for a little fee. Pat says he's going to use some of what you said and remind Hector in between rounds. The 8th round comes after this timeout. Welcome back to Struthers, Ohio. Bob Hoppe along with Teddy Atlas. Hector Camacho dominating P.J. Goosen through rounds 1 through 7. We begin round number 8. Teddy, Pat Burns sort of picked up on the theme we had when we spoke with him during the last round of what Hector Camacho needs to do.
Yeah, he was more animated. To his credit, Pat went out there and he's more animated. Let's be honest here. You got an experienced guy like Camacho, a 2-time world champion or 3-time world champion if you consider the WBO world title. And it's hard to get too animated with a guy who's been around that long, and obviously a lot of his career before he was with Pat Burns. Pat Burns is an honest guy. He's a good trainer, solid guy, but it's hard to get animated with a guy who's been around and done all the things that Camacho has done in his career. It's a little different if it's a young guy.
It's interesting because he said, just move your hands, rip off your shots. Goosen's controlling the pace. He's slowing it down. He's making this a survival thing. Take it right to him. And it was interesting, too, because when Camacho went back to the corner, Pat put his hand on Hector's chest and said, see, your heart's barely beating. You're fine. But yeah, I guess it is true. Maybe Hector really does have concerns about his conditioning at this age. Even though he really put the time in the gym, there's that psychological thing, and the trainer had to reassure a veteran guy late in the fight that, hey, your heart's barely beating. Don't worry about that.
Well, you wouldn't think so, but he's touching all bases, Pat. I know what you're saying, but Pat is touching all bases just in case that is what it is. But Hector's so experienced. First of all, if he opened up, he wouldn't be in this round, and his heart rate wouldn't have to go up.
Sorry. It's just interesting, though, that even a veteran guy like Camacho needs a reassurance like that.
Yes, they all do when they get in the ring. That's a good point, and that's true. They're still human beings. It doesn't matter whether they're a professional fighter. They still have their insecurities and their doubts. And obviously, they need them tended to. But right now, he needs to tend to throwing punches. And I don't think you have to worry about his heart rate or his pulse rate.
Well, the Bluebirds are back out here in Struthers, Ohio. Left hand from Camacho.
But then behind the left hand, see, that's the problem with it. Southpaw should finish with that right hook. If it was an orthodox guy, you'd say, hey, get him with the right hand, finish with the left hook. But Camacho falls in and allows the guy to survive. Now you wonder, does he fall in because he doesn't want to take chances, or does he fall in just to let the guy go?
Push back for me.
I think it's because he doesn't want to take chances. I think when he knows he lands a good shot, fall in, can't get countered, start all over again.
Your head's in there when you come in. Watch your
Right there, you see Camacho just fell in. Not Camacho, I'm sorry. You can see Goosen just fell in. If Camacho would have thrown an uppercut like he did there, he would have caught him.
Blood, I think, from the right eye of Goosen. Round number 8 drips to an end. Camacho is schooling P.J. Goosen. Welcome back to Friday Night Fights on the Deuce, presented by Budweiser. Oliver McCall, former heavyweight champion, WBC champion, seated here at ringside tonight. A lot of former fighters are here. Of course, McCall had that meltdown against Lennox Lewis.
Of course, the same guy who he won the heavyweight title against in a shocking knockout years before that.
Right. And Camacho and P.J. Goosen continue round number 9 in the scheduled 10-rounder. And the fans booing early here in round 9. And they have had absolutely no reason to get excited.
Watch your heads.
No, they've had a reason to be upset. Quite honestly, they want to see more action than this. They paid a ticket.
They have not seen good action.
No, they have not. They have not.
They've seen bad boxing, let's face it.
Yeah, and not effort. I mean, I don't mind a guy if he's not a real high caliber, but try. And right now, of course, Hector, I don't think it's because of his age. Right now, for whatever decision he's made, he tried to sneak a left hand in there. Real sneaky and real experience. He dipped like he was going to go over for the right hook, and he threw the left hand. That's a real experience setup there. But Goosen was able to take the punch because it's one punch.
Yeah, I think they're disgruntled with the West Union fight, where Union was absolutely uncompetitive. Knocked down 6 times from body shots 4 of the times. And it was like a sparring session for Robert West in the Windman Fights fight.
Right now, every time Hector gets close to Goosen, Goosen leans forward, anticipating a punch coming. If Hector would throw the jab and then an uppercut, he would definitely land that left uppercut. But then Goosen doesn't need a defense after that, because Camacho gives him a defense. Camacho just falls in like that and smothers himself and allows Goosen to survive. And you can see Goosen fell forward. If Camacho would step back and throw a punch, again, he would be very successful with that. It's not a matter of what he can do, it's a matter of what he wants to do. And whether that's because he's worried at this age of his conditioning, or because he's carrying the guy playing safety first, whatever it is, that is what it is. It's not a matter he can't do it, it's a matter of what he wants to do. Also in the corner of Hector Camacho, early on when they were tending to a cut, I saw Alex Ramos, who's the camp coordinator for Hector. Alex was a former top amateur, great pro prospect years ago, about 15, 20 years ago. Never lived up to his potential, but now he's found his potential. He started a Retired Boxers Foundation to help fighters, and he's been doing some pretty good work with that. He really has. He found destitute fighters, and whenever they can, they help them with medical bills, housing, things like that.
Break!
We waltz to the end of round number 9. We'll take you to the corner of P.J. Goosen, with Pat Goosen, his dad, in control.
3 minutes. Can you give it to me? Huh? 3 minutes. I don't know what's wrong with you, man. What? Well, you have to finish. Finish. You understand? Throw that right hand. Let it go. Okay, please. You're going out here on your feet. Wash off his mouthpiece. Come on. Last round. You got 3 minutes. That's it. Okay? Gotta let something go, man. Let something go, PJ. The only way you can win this fight is by getting lucky.
Put together 8, 9, 10 combinations from the outside. Don't fall in. You'll get him out. You'll get him out, all right? Give me a good, strong last round, okay, Macho? Good, strong last round. Don't fall in. The right hand will get his ass. You can take him out of here now. Come on. Come on, Macho. Come on, Macho. Give me a good one.
Well, totally different tenors, Teddy, in the respective corners. Pat Burns urging Camacho with the right hand to take out Goosen. And Goosen's camp saying, be lucky to get